God, if you won't change this man, release me from this prison. Chioma whispered these words into the emptiness of her kitchen, the sound barely rising above the hum of the refrigerator. She'd never thought of herself as someone who would pray for the end of her marriage. Yet here she was, 5 years in, feeling more alone than she ever had when she was single. In the heart of Port Harcourt, among the rustling plantain trees lining Okporo Road, Chioma and Emeka's four-bedroom duplex stood as a monument to success. Neighbors pointed to their home as proof that hard work paid off. Two cars in the driveway, weekends spent at the country club, holiday photos that drew envious comments on Instagram. But behind the heavy wooden door with its shiny brass knocker, silence had become the loudest sound in their home. Chioma couldn't pinpoint exactly when the coldness had set in. Was it last year when Emeka got the promotion that doubled his working hours? Was it the argument about visiting his parents that neither of them ever properly resolved? Or was it the baby they had planned for that never came? Whatever the cause, the result was the same. Two people living separate lives under one roof, passing each other like ghosts. Emeka used to write her poems, short, sometimes clumsy verses that made her laugh and blush. Now, he barely looked up from his phone when she entered a room. They still slept in the same bed, king sized, imported from Dubai on their third anniversary, but might as well have been oceans apart. Chioma had taken to building a wall of pillows down the middle, a physical barrier to match the emotional one. The worst part wasn't the distance, it was the absence of conflict. There were no fights to clear the air, no passionate disagreements that could lead to equally passionate reconciliations. Just nothing. That morning, like every morning, they had shared the breakfast table without sharing a single meaningful word. Emeka had buttered his toast, scrolled through his phone, and left for work with barely a nod in her direction. Chioma had stared at the back of his crisp blue shirt as he walked out, wondering if this emptiness was all that remained of what had once felt like love. In the early afternoon, after teaching her literature class at the university, Chioma sat in her car in the faculty parking lot. She found herself scrolling through photos from their wedding day. The way Emeka had looked at her then, like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. When had that look disappeared from his eyes? She pulled up her lawyer's contact information. One call could start the process of ending this hollow marriage. Her finger hovered over the call button, but she didn't press it. Not yet. That evening, Chioma sat on their leather sofa, still contemplating the call she hadn't made. The house was quiet except for the faint sounds of traffic outside. Emeka had texted that he would be working late again. Her phone vibrated. A WhatsApp message from an unknown number lit up his screen. Good evening, sweetheart. I miss you. Hope you're safe. Chioma stared at the message. A wrong number, clearly, but something about the tenderness in those simple words made her heart ache. When was the last time Emeka had called her sweetheart? When had he last said he missed her? She replied out of instinct. Sorry, wrong number. The response came quickly. Ah, I'm so sorry. I meant to text my wife. We've been having issues. Didn't mean to bother you. Kyoma's fingers hovered over the keyboard. The proper thing would be to say, no problem, and end the conversation. Instead, she typed, I'm going through something similar. She didn't know why she shared this with a stranger. Perhaps it was the anonymity that made it safe. Perhaps it was simply that she needed to tell someone how she felt, even if that someone was just a random wrong number. The stranger replied, Really? I guess a lot of us are in the same boat. Marriage isn't what they show in movies, is it? No, Kioma typed back. It's not. And just like that, a conversation began. For 2 hours they chatted. Two strangers, both married, both struggling, both unseen by their partners. The man shared how he had gradually stopped talking to his wife because he felt unappreciated, how his long hours at work were partly necessity, partly escape, how sometimes he sat in his car outside their home, gathering strength before going inside to face another evening of silence. I used to tell her everything, he wrote. Now I can barely remember how to start a conversation with her. Kioma found herself nodding at her phone screen. She told him how she longed for affection, for small gestures, for being heard, how she'd started sleeping with pillows between her and her husband because the physical proximity without emotional connection was too painful to bear. It's like we're excellent roommates, she typed. We share bills, we share space, but we don't share our lives anymore. The stranger responded, funny how that happens. Sometimes we forget the person sleeping beside us is starving emotionally. That line hit Kioma like thunder. She excused herself from the conversation and went into the kitchen to cry. Standing over the sink, tears falling freely, she realized she hadn't cried about her marriage in months. She had moved from pain to numbness, which was somehow worse. The stranger's words had cracked open something she had been trying to keep sealed. Was Emeka starving emotionally too? Had she been so focused on her own hunger that she hadn't seen his? Later that night, Emeka came home. As usual, he entered quietly, as if trying not to disturb the silence that had become their normal. He smelled of stress and exhaustion. His shoulders slumped under the weight of the day. For the first time in months, Chioma looked at him, really looked at him, not as the man who had disappointed her, but as someone who might be carrying his own pain. How was your day? She asked. Emeka looked at her, startled by the simple question that had once been routine. Hard, he said after a moment. Really hard. She didn't judge. She didn't offer solutions. She just listened. Something in the air between them softened. He sat down at the kitchen table. She made him tea, the way he liked it, strong, with just a hint of sugar. They talked about small things, his difficult client, her challenging student. Nothing profound, but it was a start. When they went to bed that night, Kioma didn't build her wall of pillows. They didn't touch, but the space between them felt less vast. The next day, Chioma found herself thinking about the stranger's message throughout her classes. She wondered if his conversation with her had helped him as much as it had helped her. Had he found the courage to speak to his wife? A few days later, she received another message from him. Thank you for listening the other night. I talked to my wife. We're trying again. She smiled and replied, so are we. But after sending the message, something tugged at her mind, a feeling she couldn't quite place. Curiosity, perhaps, or something deeper. She clicked on the number's profile photo, which she hadn't bothered to look at before. Her breath caught. It was Emeka, her husband. The stranger she had confided in about her failing marriage was the very man she was married to. Chioma sat frozen, her phone in her hand, as the realization washed over her. All those feelings he had shared, all those frustrations, they were Emeka's true thoughts about their marriage, things he had never said to her face, and she had told him her truth as well, hidden behind the safety of anonymity. The coincidence seemed impossible. Port Harcourt was a big city. How could a wrong number connect two people already connected by marriage? Unless it wasn't a wrong number at all. That night, when Emeka came home, Chioma was waiting. Her heart pounded as she tried to decide what to say, how to begin. He greeted her with a small smile, a new development in their slowly thawing relationship. Over the past few days, they had continued to talk more, to acknowledge each other's presence in small ways. But tonight, Chioma needed more than small talk. I need to show you something, she said, holding out her phone with the WhatsApp conversation open. Emeka took the phone, his expression curious. As he read, his face changed. Surprise, then recognition, then something like wonder. That wrong number message you sent, Chioma said, her voice barely above a whisper. It changed everything. He stared at her, then down at the phone, then back at her. I knew it was you, he finally said. After the first hour of our conversation, I recognized your way of writing, but I didn't want to stop. Why? The question came out small, uncertain. Because for the first time in so long, I met the version of you that wasn't disappointed in me, and I became the version of me that was finally listening. Tears filled Kioma's eyes. Was it really a wrong number? Emeka shook his head. I was trying to text my business partner, Samuel. His number is just one digit different from yours. But once I realized it was you, he paused. Maybe it wasn't an accident at all. They sat together on the sofa, the same one where Kioma had received that first message. The distance between them now measured in inches, not miles. I've missed you, Emeka said. Even though we've been in the same house, I've missed who we were. Me too, Kioma admitted. I think I started building walls long before the pillows. They talked late into the night about when things had started to go wrong, about the expectations they had placed on each other without communicating them, about the hurts they had swallowed rather than shared. I stopped writing you poems because you laughed at one, Emeka confessed. I know you didn't mean it unkindly, but I felt foolish. I thought you stopped because you didn't feel those things anymore, Kioma replied. I never knew my laugh hurt you. It was a night of revelations, small misunderstandings that had grown into canyons of silence, assumptions that had hardened into beliefs, needs that had gone unspoken and therefore unmet. I don't want to go back to how things were, Kioma said as the night grew late, even before it got bad. What do you mean? Emeka asked. I want better than what we had. I want us to keep talking like this. Do not let silence build up between us again. Emeka reached for her hand, the first time he had initiated physical contact in months. I want that too. That night, they didn't just forgive each other, they chose each other again. Not with the blind optimism of their wedding day, but with eyes open to both the beauty and the challenge of loving another flawed human being. The next morning, Kioma woke to find Emeka's side of the bed empty. For a moment, old fears crept in. Had anything really changed? Then she heard noise from the kitchen. The smell of frying plantains drifted up the stairs. She found Emeka cooking breakfast, something he hadn't done since their first year of marriage. On the table sat a folded piece of paper. Inside, a short, somewhat clumsy poem about morning light and second chances. Chioma smiled. It wasn't perfect. Neither were they, but it was real, and it was theirs. Over the following weeks, their reconnection continued. There were setbacks, moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves, times when one or both of them retreated into silence rather than risk conflict. But now they had a new awareness. When silence began to grow, one of them would name it. We're getting quiet again, they would say. And the naming itself was often enough to break the spell. They started dating each other again. Thursday nights became their time. No work, no phones, just the two of them rediscovering each other. Emeka cut back his working hours, recognizing that no promotion was worth losing the connection with his wife. Kioma learned to express her needs directly, rather than expecting him to intuit them. 6 months after that fateful wrong number, they renewed their vows in a small ceremony by the river. Not because their marriage had been saved by a miracle, but because they wanted to mark the work they had done and commit to the work still ahead. As they spoke, promises both old and new, Kioma thought about how close they had come to losing each other. How a simple text message, a digital error, had opened a door that normal conversation couldn't. Sometimes healing comes through the strangest channels. Sometimes we need the mask of anonymity to speak our deepest truths, and sometimes what seems like an accident is exactly what we need. That evening, as they swayed together to the same song that had played at their first wedding, Emeka whispered in her ear, "Want to hear something strange? I still have that business partner, Samuel. His number is still in my phone. But when I checked after our conversation, I realized it's nothing like yours. Not even close." Kioma pulled back to look at him. "What are you saying?" Emeka shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. "I'm saying maybe it wasn't a wrong number after all. Maybe it was exactly the right one." Kioma thought about coincidences and divine intervention, about the mysterious ways connections are formed and reformed. She didn't have answers, but as she rested her head on her husband's shoulder, feeling his heartbeat against hers, she knew one thing with certainty. Most marriages don't die from hate, they die from silence. She and Emeka had found their voices again, and as long as they kept talking, really talking, they would be okay. "I love you," she said. The words simple but weighted with new understanding. "I love you too," he replied. "Both the stranger I texted and the woman in my arms." In the heart of Port Harcourt, among the rustling plantain trees and the busy streets, their home was no longer a monument to success, but a workshop of love, imperfect, ongoing, alive. Share your thoughts about this story in the comment section, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more exciting stories from the heart of Africa.